We are on the Bosphorus, on of the boat tours, like the very interesting ones we do every time we come here with the group of voices. And the place where we are right now is really interesting for several reasons. Number one is because we get a panoramic view of the whole city of Istanbul, and we go through many years, we learn a lot. In fact, there are a lot of people who watch the famous Turkish soap operas. I've been told that Turkish soap operas are really famous, and so here there's a lot of talk about the sultans and all that, which is part of the culture. And here is the Galata Tower, for example. We can see it. We're gonna go there later on. We're looking at all the palaces where all these sultans used to live. In front of us now, I'm gonna turn the camera around. You can see a bridge back there. A bridge. That bridge is the one that connects Istanbul? Oh. It connects European Istanbul to Asian Istanbul. Right now, we are in the part called the Sea of Marmara, but it's actually more like a gulf. And we are on the European side, like in European waters. But those little boats, for example, that big one over there, that one is in Asian waters. Really interesting. The border crosses right through the middle. But it's not a national border, it's a continental border, because it's a change of continent. This is where the boundary between the Asian and European continents shifts. And Istanbul is, I don't know if I should say, maybe the only city, I'm not so sure about that, but I would probably think so, where there is a city in Europe called Istanbul, and a city in Asia called Istanbul. It's the same Istanbul, it's just that one part is on one continent and the other part is on another continent. And the way to cross from one side to the other is either by water, by a bridge, or by an underground train that goes beneath this whole canal. We are here, having this really interesting experience. Today, our route continues to Cappadocia, and from here, we are heading to Cappadocia. And we are learning a lot. And the weather we've had, honestly, has been incredible. A tremendous privilege, and especially our guide this time, Sophie. She is explaining to the group up there about each building, each place, each space. She is there with a microphone. I came here to the front of the boat to share with you as well, those who couldn't join this adventure, those who stayed at home. But well, it's really interesting, just to give a chronological overview of what happened here. She told us, for example, a very interesting fact that caught my attention, which is that there are more than 3,000 mosques, but there are also 2,300 chapels. Chapel was the term she used. But she says there's a difference. Mosques have people, chapels don't have people. There are no Christian sites here, there's no community, there's no Christian community. Because she explained that in the past, when Islam took control, or rather when it expanded, it's not that it took control, but rather that the message of Islam spread. Many of the Greek Catholics and the Christians who were here eventually decided to move to other cities. That's why we have a strong presence. Even Christian Greek in Greece, Greek Orthodox, they went to Russia, to other countries. Europeans, but they left Istanbul and abandoned Istanbul. What we remember as Istanbul before was not Istanbul, but it was built on what was once the great city of Constantinople, where Christianity began to become official through Constantine. Many times, sometimes we don't remember or we don't know about those stories, because if we know a lot about the New Testament and we remember that, for example, the Apostle Paul on his last journey when he was in the Mediterranean Sea in a city called Caesarea, it says that they were looking for him to kill him, and that in the end they didn't manage to kill him because the Jews wanted to kill him. But since he was a Roman citizen from La Pela, and then he says no, because I want to be judged before Caesar. Do you remember that story in the book of Acts, chapter 25, chapter 26, tells us that story where finally Agrippa comes and says to Paul, almost Paul, you persuade me to be a Christian, to believe in what you believe. But because you appealed to Caesar, I can't set you free, so you will go to be judged before Caesar. And that's where Paul begins his journey, finally to Rome. Rome at last. That was the empire. They believed in different gods. They believed in the worship of man, in the body, and everything else. And finally, Constantine, who was the strong, powerful emperor and conqueror, ended up making Christianity the official religion. Helena, his mother, is the one who decides to go on the adventure of traveling to Israel and stops calling it Israel. She gives it the name Holy Land, and that's where the term Holy Land begins. She said that was the place where the Messiah was born, where the Messiah was killed and crucified. And that's where we have the whole story of the New Testament. The apostles, however, John, those who had been with the Lord. It is said that Mary, the mother of Jesus, and also, of course, the apostle Paul, they were the ones who traveled to these places, to the European lands, to what was Greater Asia, Asia Minor. They passed through these places and upon arrival began searching for Jewish communities. We're back here, for example, and we'll go later. In what was the first Jewish community of those Jews who lived in these territories. And it was where the apostles came and preached to them and shared God, the gospel, with exactly the Jews who had come to these lands. Remember that when Jerusalem was conquered in the year 73 AD, the dispersion of the Jews began, and many left the territory of Israel. What we now know by the term diaspora, the famous word that was called diaspora. When they moved to these places, they began to live around here. And Paul, who was sent to the Gentiles, that is, non-Jews, never forgot that term. That's why he tells us, to the Jew first, and then to the Gentile, then to the Greek, because he had a kind of pain in his heart. He said, if I, being a Jew, understood who the Messiah was, even though I persecuted him, I want them, my brothers, to know him too. So he took on the task of coming to these places, traveling over these waters, getting on those ships, and coming through these territories, in order to teach and share with those who were his own flesh and blood, and he shared the gospel with them, right? That's why we're told that he even rented a house right next to a synagogue so he could share with the Jews. And that's how he tried to bring the gospel to the local people. Finally, the non-Jews are those who also came to see salvation. They are those who accepted Jesus and accepted the God of Israel as their God. And here, for many years, the gospel spread. We have it written in the book of Acts, chapter 27 and onward. We have the stories of the Hebrews written in the book of Hebrews, and we also have the stories I just told you written down, in summary in the Acts of the Apostles. And obviously, later on, the famous epistles will arrive, to the Ephesians, to the Thessalonians, to the Corinthians, when the gospel began to flourish in those lands. We are here in this territory, Asian territory, European territory, traveling through the lands of the Bible. Why do we call them the lands of the Bible? Because, of course, they are written about in the Bible, what many of us sometimes fail to take into account and overlook. But Turkey does exist in the Bible, not with the term Turkey, because Turkey appears with that more modern name, but it is mentioned as Asia Minor. And these were the places where the apostles moved around here. We are going to Cappadocia, and there we will continue learning and gain a better understanding of the scriptures. So really, as I always say, there is no better way to learn the scriptures, there is no better way to learn the scriptures. But rather in the actual places, because it's like the Bible opens up before our eyes, and the Holy Spirit guides us to understand a little more deeply. We will continue reporting from this nation on everything we are doing, everything we are seeing, all these experiences we are having. And I encourage you with all my heart so that you can be part of this, be part of this. I know that for years Israel has been closed to us because of conflicts and everything else. But we don't want to stop learning the scriptures. At some point we will return and visit Israel again. But in the meantime, we also continue to grow and learn the scriptures in these lands and have incredible experiences. So we keep sharing, we keep reporting our experiences from all these very, very interesting and, of course, tremendously iconic places. And, of course, enjoying, learning, and growing in the scriptures. So, family, here I leave you with these images, none other than from the Bosphorus, the Sea of Marmara, in the city of Istanbul, Turkey.
We invite you to experience something that will transform the way you read the Bible. Walk through the very places where the events that shaped the history of faith took place. Discover their historical, archaeological, and spiritual context, and experience a journey you will remember forever. Reserve your spot today by visiting discoveringisrael.com and be part of this unique experience in the land of the Bible.
We just woke up. We're already here having breakfast and we're ready to head out. Packing our bags. Now the bus is coming to pick us up and we're already leaving.
We are
In this
opportunity.
from here,